Okay, so for your take on paper number one, you're comparing Los Angeles Times and Facebook. Tell me a little bit about how Facebook might be some sort of news source you've got here.
Well, for my generation, I feel like we're much more likely to go to Facebook or go online to get our news, to waste 10 minutes of our free time rather than go pick up a copy of the LA Times.
And what about like front page news?
Oh, for that I wouldn't go to Facebook necessarily. I really like going to CNN.com. If there's something I just really think that they should know or they would be interested in that's something more serious, then I'm going to take the 5 minutes to link it to them through Facebook message or to link it onto their wall.
But let's put that down right now for form and structure, because this is going to be a structural difference in between the form of the LA Times and the form of Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Let's talk about how they're different in the way that they communicate the news.
Yeah, it's paper bound, and you have to go. You can't just be on your couch and have it right in front of you. You're going to either go outside if you get it delivered, or you're going to go put a few quarters in those machines and go get one at your grocery store or whatever.
Okay, so it's at a place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then if you're comparing that with the internet, then you just type it in, and within seconds you can jump from one news source to the other and have access to 20 articles just as a click, rather than having to shuffle through all those pages to get the one section that you're interested in.
Okay, so it's more convenient, sounds like. It's more immediate. It's more direct, it sounds like.
Yeah.
What happens when you try to send an article from the conventional newspaper to your friends?
Well, first, I'm not going to get it from the conventional newspaper, but even if I did have a reason to tell them that they might want to check it out, they're not likely to get it, so maybe I would have to tell them to find the same article online.
Okay, or you could cut it out like my great aunt used to do.
Exactly, but I'm too lazy to do that, honestly, and I think that I'd have to make sure I saw them in person.
Okay.
Or I'd have to scan it and then email it to them, and so that's much more of a process.
So that's how you share articles in the LA Times, but what do you do when you're sharing an article through Facebook?
Well, if I were to share it through Facebook, I would just go to my browser and select that link. I'd copy it and I'd paste it either onto a friend's wall, or I'd send a bunch of friends a personal message and just stick the link right there.
But how often do you do this, though? Is it just every once in a while? Or?
No, I do it on a pretty regular basis. I'm reading the news every few days online, and I'm going to come across something that someone I know is going to find interesting, so I'll link it over to them.
All right, well, what's an example then?
Well, I was looking at CNN.com, and they linked me to another website with like funny things on it, and then through that website I found this, a little baby pig that insists on wearing boots when he's in the mud, or else he won't go in the mud.
So you didn't start out at this article. You started out where? CNN.com, you said?
That's always my starting point. I go there, and then that takes me to a bunch of different other websites, and I probably wouldn't have found this article if it hadn't been just through that other website.
So that sounds like a change. What if we use the change topos here? And do you think that represents a growth or a decay?
Definitely a growth, because we're going from just one source that you get, and you just got however many, a limited amount of paper there with a limited amount of articles, and you just get that once a day at best. The internet, we're going from one website that is literally updated every few minutes.
Doesn't it also represent a decay if you're spending all your time on pig and boot stories?
I'm also looking at the relevant, important articles. Those are just an example of something I would share with my friend.
But would you share a relevant, important article?
Of course.
All right, what's an example?
For instance, a few weeks ago, I got an article off CNN.com, my go-to website, about the HPV vaccine that has become a big deal in the past few years, especially for women around my age.
Okay.
And I just wanted them to get what that article said, because I care about them. I don't want them to just rely on one source. I want them to see it all. So that's the other good thing about the internet, is you can get a bunch of different sources, and I could easily link that article to them, and they can just easily read it. Because I sent it to them, they're going to read it. They're going to say, well, if Cindy thinks it's important, maybe I should actually take a look.
So we still need CNN.
Do we still need CNN?
Yeah.
Of course. Well, that's where I'm getting the news originally,
Okay.
but I'm sharing it through Facebook.
So with regard to values, how do the two media serve the different ethical responsibilities, let's say, of the newspaper or of journalism?
Well, with the LA Times, you're definitely more likely to be able to rely on the information being relevant and true than you would just through the internet. But at the same time, because we have the same articles that are going to be in the LA Times online, you can just rely on those. Don't go to blogs if you want news that's definitely right, definitely on point.
Okay, so let's put that down as part of the ethical responsibility of these.
Since I'm getting the news stories that I'm reading tend to be reliable, and I'm getting them from CNN.com, I can, for the most part, I can trust them. And since my friends can trust me, that when I send them this message, they're gonna believe that information is good.
Well, let's switch to another topos. Let's switch to means ends. That comes out of cause and effect.
Mm-hmm.
What's the ends of the LA Times? What's its goal?
Well, just provide us with news for the most part.
And then contrast that with the Facebook situation.
Anyone can join Facebook, but I know that the people that I'm interacting with on Facebook are all around my age, and we all know each other.
And how does that change the way you send news to them?
Well, I'm going to send them news that is relevant to our age group.
Are we using relevant in two different ways? When we're
What?
When you say the LA Times is relevant, it sounds like you mean something different than when
Yeah,
you
I
say
do.
that Facebook is relevant to you. How's LA Times relevant? What does it mean in that context?
Well, when I said that earlier, I meant that they're providing us with information that has to do with, a much larger spectrum, but still about it. They're supposed to be providing us with information that someone's going to find interesting.
Okay.
But Facebook, when we're sending each other stuff on Facebook, then it's relevant to just a specific demographic, our age group.
The LA Times was trying to do the same thing, wasn't it?
Well, it was definitely trying to, if it had that same article, then it would be trying to get anyone who would be interested in reading it.
But also, it seems like you've got a lot more information than the LA Times has about your particular readers.
I'm going to target the people that I think should read that, whereas the LA Times is just sending it out to everyone.
So this can then become one of our points to make. That article has given us quite a bit to work with. How would you put all this together if you were approaching the prompt?
Well, what we were talking about earlier is how the life of that article lasted either through LA Times as a paper source rather than through the internet, specifically Facebook. And I think that throughout that entire process, the convenience of either one and the targeted audience factor for either one helped that article get from those specific people much, much better than it would have through the LA Times.
We've used the topoi, at least very passingly, and now we can explore them a little bit further to enrich our exploration of this topic. We're not ready to write the thesis yet, but this is one of those tools that's useful at the very beginning stages of the process. And as you pursue this topic through this article, I think you'll have an excellent paper.
Well, definitely when we started out, I was just comparing the LA Times and Facebook, but I didn't really know where I was going with it. But through this process, I guess I've realized that I've sort of become also a news source, and I'm taking that original relevant information and I'm giving it to a targeted audience through the means of Facebook. And in the HPV case, they wouldn't have gotten that information if I hadn't found it online and then given it to them. And I didn't realize that before.